Well, you all may know I've recently become a reading person as of this year. It was my one of my New Year's resolutions, and sometimes a rom-com is exactly what you need. So this morning we are joined with Ohio author Kerry Winfrey, who's here to share with us a little bit about her books and writing process, as well as why she writes rom-coms. Kerry, thanks for joining us so much this morning.
Thank you so much for having me, Kaylee.
Okay, so I just mentioned you're a rom-com author, but one of the unique parts of your writing is you include little pieces of Ohio and your hometown in your work. So what inspired that?
Yeah, well, there are so many rom-coms that are set in New York City, and I love those. My favorite movie is You've Got Mail. But I think that there are other places that can be just as romantic and special as settings for rom-coms. And I have lived in Ohio my whole life, so it's definitely what I know the most about. And my first three rom-coms were set here in Columbus, where I live now. And Just Another Love Song is set in a fictionalized version of my hometown, Belleville, which I call Baileyville in the book.
Awesome. And so if you're a rom-com lover, obviously there is a stigma with reading rom-coms and types of books like that. So how do you make each of your stories unique?
Yeah, well, I think that is definitely something a lot of people say about rom-coms is they're predictable. But if you're someone who loves romance, that predictability is kind of one of the selling points. Having that ending where you know that no matter what happens in the book, no matter what the characters go through, they are going to end up with a happily ever after. It gives you a sense of real comfort and hope while you're reading that you don't always find in real life. And that's why I think that romance authors are really some of the most creative writers out there because you have to work with that formula where you know how it's going to end and you have to make it fresh for readers. So I try to focus on making my characters funny and people that readers hopefully want to hang out with.
I will agree with you there as someone who reads rom-com type books. Every time I read a new book, I'm like, wow, how did they come up with each of these storylines and each of these ideas? So I guess to that point, share with us your journey. How do you start your ideas and how do you get to the final product of the finished book?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of ideas. Not all of them are good. So I tend to, if there's an idea that I can't stop thinking about, I will think, well, that's something I really need to hopefully turn into a book. And I'm someone who outlines. I know some writers don't, but I need to have an outline to kind of know where I'm going. And luckily, I have really wonderful editors at my publisher, Berkeley, who can help me take my first drafts into the finished product.
What are your favorite things about writing rom-com and getting to see the final product here especially with your most recent book, Just Another Love Song?
I think my favorite thing is that it is really fun. I mean, it's work, it's my job, but it's such a fun job to be able to write a book. I've always wanted to be a writer. So to be able to write something that's funny and that makes people happy is really just such a gift. And I love being able to connect with readers who've read the book and hear their thoughts on it. That's probably my favorite part.
If you had to share some advice to young authors or maybe someone who wants to do it as a hobby, maybe get started in the business, what advice would you have to share?
I think my biggest piece of advice, and this is what so many people say, is to read as much as you can. Definitely. If you love a book or hate a book, you can learn so much about writing just from thinking about what you loved or hated.
Awesome. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. We totally appreciate it having you here on our show this weekend.
Thank you so much, Kaylee.
And if you're interested in reading Kerry's book, you could grab a copy of Just Another Love Song. It is at our local bookstores. We have more after this quick break right here on WTOL 11 this morning.